Warning: the following video contains explicit language, which may be offensive to some viewers or inappropriate for children. The content within this video is intended for mature audiences only.
Are you ready? Hey everybody, it's Jeff. Good to see everybody here. I hope everybody had a good week. I know here we had a mixture of some cool and warm weather, but it wasn't really that hot. And I hear this coming week here is going to be really nice, so that's good. But you know, the depressing thing is the days are getting shorter now, and it's really noticeable because by about, let's see, what time is it now? It's 6:55 and it's almost pitch black outside. So you know, it's quick when it changes the other way. It's quick. We get more sunlight. When it goes back, it's, you know, practically within a few weeks you're already looking at dark in the middle, you know, in the evening. So it's just I hate that, you know. I got to start taking my vitamin D3 and everything, so I can keep my health up to par. So it's been a while since I did a video here last, I guess, and I think that one of the reasons why that I've been kind of putting it off is that, you know, the things that's been going on right now in politics has been sort of a circus act, and when I hear or read about things going on, like, for example, Lauren Boebert's expulsion from a theater because she and her boyfriend were practically going at it in the damn theater at a Beetlejuice musical. And she made a scene as they ushered her out of there. I feel like, you know, what I mean, if we're resorting to bringing her name up over something like that, then obviously there isn't that much important politics to talk about. We're just, you know, getting tabloid politics instead. And so I just felt like, you know, it seems like, you know, I would be reiterating just how stupid Lauren Boebert is, and that would only be one of many examples of why she should not be a congresswoman, okay? And for the most part, people feel that she's not going to make another term. Because the guy that she got 5 votes, beat him by 5 votes, he's going to run again against her, and it looks like maybe this time he'll win this, and then, you know, she'll just fade off like Sarah Palin did. But, you know, the only odd thing about what she did was that the guy that she's dating now is a Democrat, and he also has a bar where he runs drag shows. 2 things that she don't like. Okay. And so she's there, you know, and so she's there to basically, you know, have fun with this guy. At the same time, she's smearing Democrats all over the place. And I'm like, you know, we talk about a person that's got 2 faces, okay? I mean, it's like, she only takes a stand on something when it benefits her. In reality, her position on things in her mind is completely the opposite, okay? So her character is basically trash, and I think people, even some Republicans, have pretty much, you know, called her out as being a hypocrite and white trash and everything, and, you know, people just aren't really interested in her anymore. So I don't think she's got much of a chance to win a second term. So that would be nice to get rid of that one crazy bitch in that. I'd like to see, Marjorie Taylor Greene get out of there at some point. But I don't think she's really that popular as much as she was before either, because they're gonna getting tired of her. But with the speaker and Matt Gaetz, the things they were doing this week, which was basically just showboating and everything. Nothing much to really discuss. Okay. They're still trying to bring down Hunter Biden and drag Joe Biden down with them, which isn't going to work. They come up with a list of reasons that they think they can impeach Biden on, which they can't even get enough votes from their own members to be able to do that. So, so it's really a circus fest this week. So I kind of felt like I wasn't really needed here to say anything. But there were some things that I would like to talk about that aren't politics, and so I found there was this one article, and some of you probably noticed it because it sort of made an appearance in many different articles. The issue is about women drinking themselves practically to death. Some research has been conducted on this. This version, the article of this story, the version here, is from NBC News, and it's written by Linda Carroll. It says, deaths related to excessive alcohol consumption are rapidly rising in the United States, especially among women, a new study finds. While drinking is still killing more men than women, the rate of alcohol-related deaths is rising faster amongst the women, according to the report published Friday in JAMA Network Open. The, quote, the gender gap is narrowing, unquote, said the study's lead author, Dr. Ibrahim Carrier, or I don't know how to say that name, a professor of population health and director of the health science program at Hofstra University in Hampstead, New York. Previous studies found that women are drinking greater amounts of alcohol, with binging becoming increasingly common, and that may at least partially explain the rising rates of complications like cirrhosis, he said. In an analysis of 2 decades of data from the Centers of Disease Control, stop reaching for the phone, on prevention, Carrier and his colleagues found that women's alcohol-related mortality rate rose by 14.7% as compared to 12.5% in men. Changing attitudes toward heavy drinking by women may partly explain the rise in the number of deaths. Women's alcohol consumption has been normalized, said Dr. Peter Martin, an addiction expert and a professor of psychiatry and behavioral sciences and pharmacology at the Vanderbilt University School of Medicine in Nashville, Tennessee. Since the 1900s, there's been a progressive increase in drinking by women, and they're getting closer to men. Quote, it's become more and more socially acceptable for women to drink as much as men, unquote, said Martin, who was not involved in the new research. The time from when women take their first drink to the time they develop medical complications is much shorter than it is for men, Martin said. For a variety of reasons, women can't metabolize alcohol as fast as men, meaning they have more of the toxic substance in their system for longer. Women have lower amounts of the enzyme alcohol dehydrogenase needed to break their drinks down, so they are left with higher levels of a substance that is toxic to organs like the liver. Moreover, women have less body water to dilute the alcohol they've consumed. The end result is that alcohol in their systems becomes more concentrated. Dr. Lisa Ganju, an associate professor in the Division of Gastroenterology and Liver Disease at NYU Langone Health, regularly sees women with complications from drinking who aren't aware of how toxic alcohol is to their bodies. They often don't realize that they don't need to drink as much as men to develop liver disease, unquote, she said. Quote, the article didn't surprise me, unquote, said Ganju, who was not affiliated with the new study. Quote, women are overusing alcohol with more frequency now, unquote. Quote, I've had to talk to a fair number of women about their alcohol use, unquote. She added, quote, I had one patient who developed pancreatitis from drinking ask me when she could start drinking again. She said it wasn't acceptable to not drink with clients. It's mind-boggling, unquote. Catherine Keyes, a professor of epidemiology at Columbia University's Mailman School of Public Health, said that alcohol has been sold to women as a part of a luxury lifestyle, having a good time and a way to reduce stress. Quote, if you look at who has binge drinking the most, it's women at midlife, unquote, she said. Quote, we see the greatest escalations in women with the highest socioeconomic status, those with the highest incomes, the most education, and the highest status occupations, unquote. Probably because, alcohol isn't cheap, and, women in that bracket probably are able to afford that, more. I kind of noticed a little more about seeing women, which I really didn't notice, at all, like, say, 25 years ago. I see more women now sitting alone at bars drinking, okay? And, usually you would see maybe one or two, in a bar, and the rest of them are men. This time, it's sort of almost even keel now. And and I notice you'll find just about as many women there sitting alone drinking as you will men. And, because we're seeing this increase in women drinking and injuring, their body because of how much they're drinking, there must be a root cause. There has to be a stressor or something that's really causing them to do that, I would think. And I'm wondering if it has any similarities to, that men drink for. If it's just social, or if it's just there because it's a habit, or if they're doing it because, they're depressed. And you know what I'm saying? There's all kinds of emotional reasons why people overdrink. Okay? And, I'm not saying that all these women that drink at the bar are over drinking, but it does concern me when these women who are alone are also the only one driving home after. Okay, they don't have anybody with them to take them back home. So that means there might be an escalation in drunk driving at some point that people are going to take note of here in the coming months or whatever. And that's the part that worries me. Okay, I'm not against anybody drinking any alcohol, but what I am is putting other people in danger. Okay, people who they don't even know, and they might get run over or something like. Injuries can happen when you're not conscious. When you don't care enough about how you're going to get home. And I notice, like I said, that there's a lot more women now that do that have that habit. And when I go grocery shopping, see lots of women buying bottles of wine, not beer like men like beer, but women have this other kind of thing they like. It's sort of like exotic drinks, I call it. They'll go for that. They buy that stuff, and that's usually pretty expensive. So poor people really wouldn't be able to afford getting into a habit like that. Although some people and I've had a member of my family who was very much alcoholic, it wouldn't matter to them. They would put their own financial assets at risk in order to get that drink, And so I just, I know that it can get really addictive. But it is a snapshot of a part of our society that's changing. And I think if we really give a shit about this issue, because if somebody took note to make a study about it, obviously there's somebody who's concerned about this. There needs to be a follow-up, like, well, what the hell is it? What's going on out there that, so many more women are drinking like this now? Because, we all know about Marjorie Taylor Greene and her drunken rants here that she has all the time. I mean, she showed up to the State of the Union address, 3 sheets to the wind. Everybody was, could smell alcohol on her breath. I mean, she's obviously an alcoholic or something. Lauren Boebert, I don't know, but she's into something. Okay. But we're seeing examples of that. And maybe there's maybe some kind of how do I say it? Sort of like this thing, like to be cool or something. To be like them, you got to do these things or something. I mean, I know it's kind of a childish excuse. I mean, that's how a lot of kids start smoking. But maybe alcohol can be lumped into that too. Maybe alcohol usage can be seen as some sort of a status symbol. If you're drinking, then you're something or somebody. And maybe a lot of women today feel like they're nobody or something. I don't know why they would feel that way, because after all, there's a lot that women can do these days they couldn't do before. They're doing all kinds of jobs they weren't allowed to do before, and so there's opportunity out there for them. I mean, I know we had that setback with Roe v. Wade and stuff, but I think we can work ourselves out of that mess, and get back to the way things were, if we're committed to doing that. So I know there's unhappiness about that, but that doesn't affect everybody, all the women. I mean, some of these women have already had their children and stuff, and if they're drinking or something, then there's got to be something else. Is it the economy? Is it the way the economy is, and they don't feel like they're able to spend time at home with the kids as much as they'd like because everybody's got to work? Maybe women are working too much, working too many jobs in order to make ends meet. Maybe because some of these women might be single. I mean, there's a lot of factors, but if there isn't one reason, then there's probably a whole bunch of reasons. And that's kind of what I'd like to see is somebody do a study to find out, to these people, what's making you drink more, what's going on. Just let us know. We don't have to put names on the reasons. Just give us a reason. And when we'll ask others, and we'll see if there's any common denominators here, and we'll just make an article about another snapshot as to why there's the stress on people has escalated. And I think, like I said, it could be financial, because you got people striking in the country at their jobs, and people bitching that they're not getting enough pay, that it's costing an arm and a leg to get food, and so that does put a lot of pressure on people, especially if they're in a family and they got kids. And these days right now, I'm kind of glad that I'm single and I don't have any kids, because I can't imagine with the meager money that I get, which I'm not ungrateful for, but it certainly isn't enough when you lump that next to the cost of living in this country. I could use a bit more than what I'm getting, but I'm not going to bite the hand that feeds me, what they say. Just saying. And I'm sure I'm not the only one that's saying these same things. I mean, there's people out there that are making less than I am a year, and yet, they got more responsibilities, and I can't see how the hell they're making ends meet. I really don't. They have to be going without on so many levels. I mean, I can't understand that. So, like I said, there's a lot of financial, economic stressors out there causing people to go to alcohol or drugs even. And I feel like when your society starts deteriorating in that fashion, okay, that it will bring up other problems. And my father used to say, when he was around that, poverty breeds crime. And it's true. It's as true then as it is today. When people are down on their luck, poor, and they're not getting enough money to live, people will resort to criminal activity to make the ends meet. And I'm sure we're seeing a lot more crimes going up in other things other than homicides or, mass killings. We're probably, if you may take a closer look at America, you'll probably notice maybe crimes are going up in robberies around the country. Burglaries. Hell, my own girlfriend's house got burglarized 3 times this year, believe it or not. Their place up in Kingman, and they haven't recouped all that was stolen, but they still haven't figured out who the hell did it. And and if any, Kingman is a very, very small town. Everybody knows anybody. So it's like, if somebody in that town robbed them, okay, which I'm thinking it must be, because who would know that they would have so many valuables in that house? Okay, they got a lot of antiques in there, and of all the houses in Kingman, they picked that one to hit. So they had to have known what was in there that was so valuable. Okay, they got the state investigators looking at this and trying to track down suspects and shit like that. And I'm hoping that they'll find some answers here, but that's like the first time that's ever happened to them. And people have known about their home and all the stuff in their home for years, and no one's ever tried to rob them. So, whoever this is obviously didn't know, maybe for a long time, and then found out recently that they got a lot of stuff, and then decided to go do that. So, that kind of narrows down the suspect field. But not to go too long into that, I'm sure there's a lot more burglaries on the rise in the United States because of things like this, which goes back to the last video where I did, where I'm saying that people are not feeling good times, even though the Democrats are out there painting this rosy picture of, a better jobs, less jobless people out there, and trying to make the scene of America look good, which doesn't agree to everybody because it doesn't cover the whole country. The whole country is not doing good, just parts of it are, okay? And most of the country is still reeling from pandemic, okay? We're still trying to recover from it. And so as much as help that Biden did give the states and everything, and in our own governor helping the state out, if they hadn't done that, it would be a lot worse. I'll put it like that. So they did help, but we're still kind of, feeling the pinch. Basically, things could be better still to make it easier for people to live, and and I know that that's a thing that plagues the Democrat Party, because they're trying to make people feel comfortable with voting for Biden again, because they've been bitching about, oh, he's 80 years old. He's too old to be president. Well, okay. Age has always been an issue that started right back from Reagan. I remember when that issue was brought up with Ronald Reagan, and the Republicans didn't seem to give a shit about that then. You got Donald Trump, who's 77 years old. He's just 3 years younger than Biden, but they ain't saying nothing about Donald Trump running for another chance at the White House. So yeah, part of it's just political posturing, essentially. But continuing to say that over and over again in interviews and stuff like that, it does imprint itself on people's minds and makes them just think about it. And that's what the Republicans are hoping, is that more Democrats will start questioning whether or not having an 80-year-old president back in the White House is such a good idea. My answer to that is this. Okay, well, I got actually two answers to that. One answer is you'd rather have Trump in there, okay? And the second answer is the president never works alone in the White House. He's not a king. He's not an emperor. He is a president, which means he is the head of a team of people who work in the White House to help the country. So if he doesn't come up with the idea, somebody else will. If he doesn't know how to fix a problem, somebody else does. Okay, it's part of the team. It's when you pick a president, you're not just voting for the president, you're voting for the administration that president represents. Okay, it's a bunch of people. You may not know their names, okay, because it's all about the race, right? The race is, this person versus this person. For the White House, you don't get to see the names of all the people that are really going to be there with that president or that person if he wins. But Biden doesn't work alone. He's got a lot of people, younger people, half his age, some, that are working with him to help him put things together that he wants to see done, okay? One man cannot fix that. alone. Okay, he's got to have people feeling out the Senate, feeling out the Congress, feeling out the people to find out what issues are more important to them that need to see fixed. Okay, well, that's a lot of work for one person to handle. So yes, he's got to have a staff. So when you're voting for Biden, just remember the age issue is really not such a big issue. Okay, even though I'd like to see less older people like that in positions of government, because I think, what they're doing is they're creating dynasties in our country, and we shouldn't have that. I mean, that's not the way our democracy is set up. I mean, it's supposed to be, representing the people, not representing a political party or what, So, yes, I'd like to see, people kind of put that issue about the age thing aside, because it really doesn't mean anything to the Republicans either, because they've already shown that they'll support a guy that's that old and even older, okay, as president. And when you think about the job that has to be done, yes, it's monumental. Any person who was president will tell you the job was a big job, and a lot didn't get done that they would have liked to have gotten done before they left, because 8 years goes by like that. When you're busy, you're constantly on the go. So 8 years for some feels like it's not long enough. But that's why it's important for us to kind of maintain the direction. If you're going to vote for this guy, you should vote for follow-ups that follow this, that want to do the same thing. That way, the work continues under a different president. Okay, you don't want to switch gears and go to somebody else who wants to undo everything that has been done to try to help the country. You want somebody that will pick up the baton and continue to carry that forward in the next race. That's the part of the thing that most Americans have forgotten, is that they put their political loyalty in the race instead of what's best for America. Okay, and these days, what's best for America has been getting the back burner, because people feel like, the party knows. Well, no, they don't, because you don't, especially for the Republicans, you don't hear anything positive coming out of there that's going to help us. I haven't anyway. So, let's go to commercial break. We'll be right back.
This is me.
This is me.
This is me!
This is me.
I'm Alex Curtis. I'm a lobsterman in Maine, and this is me.
I'm Ruth McLaughlin, and this is me.
I'm Eric Hopkins. I'm an artist, and this is me.
This is me.
Me.
This is me.
This is me.
This is me.
At the end of the journey, the main thing is you, original.
I had a friend named Scrambling Dawn. He tried to pull off an electoral con. He thought he was the smartest guy around. He was a megalomaniac and got indicted by a guy named Jack. They've got him under federal lockdown. He's in the jailhouse now. He's in the jailhouse now. Well, I told him, have some sense. You can't send them out to hang Mike Pence. He's in the jailhouse now. Oh, MAGA, oh, oh, MAGA, oh, Magalay, Magalay, Magalay. John made a call to Georgia to find an election forger, but Raffensperger wouldn't even sway. He said in his southern drawl, "We're recording your perfect call," and Fawny says it will put you away. He's in the jailhouse now. He's in the jailhouse now. Well, they told him many times he'll be on the hook for those RICO crimes. He's in the jailhouse now. Oh my God, oh lee, oh my God, oh lee, Magalehi, Magalehi, Magalehi.
Some people have a deep, abiding respect for the natural beauty that was once this country. And some people don't. People start pollution. People can stop it. Write for Pollution Booklet, Box 1771, Radio City Station, New York.
Be a part of the entertainment value of a lifetime.
I loved it. It was the best performance I've seen in a lifetime.
I loved the show. I liked it very much. He's a very entertaining man. It's well worth the money.
Now appearing in Charlottetown, coming to Halifax November 6th to the 18th, and St. John November 20th through the 26th.
Hey everybody, welcome back. All right. So another thing here that I want to discuss is an article that Robert Reich has written And I think it's an article that was part of a bunch of articles that relate to the same topic. And I didn't read the others. Okay. But I did read this one, and I thought it had some good points in there. So I thought maybe I could share it with you here. And maybe you'll see why I thought it was something that, needs to be heard. And it goes, another thing we must do to resurrect the common good is to use honor and shame appropriately. All too often, America honors people who haven't advanced the common good, but have merely achieved notoriety or celebrity or amassed great wealth or power. All too often, America shames people for failing to conform to prevailing ideas about fashion or coolness. If we're to revive the common good, we must honor behavior that strengthens the common good and condemns behavior that erodes the common good. In contemporary America, the meaning of honor has become confused because those who bestow honors often have ulterior motives. Funding has been drying up for universities, hospitals, museums, social services, the arts, libraries, and other repositories of public goods. Meanwhile, vast riches have been accumulating in the hands of a relative few. As a result of both trends, organizations have been using the lure of honors to hook rich donors. In return for their donations, they are imbued with moral approval. Galas are held in their honor. Colleges bestow on them honorary degrees. Endowed professorships carry their names. Their names are etched on university buildings, concert halls, research institutes, and museums. But how these donors obtain their wealth is assumed to be irrelevant. The message is that the common good doesn't really count. Wealth and power do. Michael Milken was indicted in 1989 for racketeering and securities fraud. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison, which was reduced later to just 2 years, and given a fine of $600 million and a permanent ban from the securities industry. Since then, Milken has been repeatedly honored by universities for his charitable giving. The Taubman Center at Harvard's Kennedy School of Government is named after Alfred Taubman, who, in 1988, donated $15 million to establish it. In 2002, Taubman was sentenced to prison for orchestrating a price-fixing scheme between the nation's top 2 auction houses. After the conviction, Harvard students asked Harvard officials to change the name of the center. They refused. The center's director explained that, quote, "In the great scheme of things, Taubman has led a very ethical life. His conviction does not mean that his life has not been ethical, or one that Harvard doesn't want to associate with," unquote. It's funny that they didn't give Bill Cosby a break like that. Okay, so I guess it all depends on who it is we're talking about. Taubman had just been convicted of price fixing. His name was etched on Harvard School of Government, which is supposed to train students to work for the common good. A criminal conviction for price fixing did not alter the appropriateness of honoring this man. In 2017, the Los Angeles Press Club bestowed on movie mogul Harvey Weinstein its Truth Teller Award. The organization called him an example of, quote, integrity and social responsibility, unquote. But it was an open secret that Weinstein had a long history of harassing women in 5-star hotel rooms. Why did Hollywood honor Weinstein despite this? Because he raised money for many activities in Hollywood approved of, and he had the power to make or break the careers of starlets, writers, journalists, and public relations specialists who directly or indirectly depended on him. We automatically affix the prefix, quote, the honorable, unquote, to the names of people who hold high public office, including Supreme Court justices who have dishonored their office by taking lavish and unreported gifts. Honors should be reserved for those who have shown the courage to stand up for the common good against the forces of greed, corruption, and abuse of power. I'm thinking of people like Cheryl Eckerd, who in 2003, as a quality assurance manager at pharmaceutical giant GlaxoSmithKline, discovered serious problems at its largest plant. Drugs produced in non-sterile environments, a water system contaminated with microorganisms, and medicines made in the wrong doses. After Eckert alerted management, she was fired. She then shared her findings with the Food and Drug Administration and sued the company. And Army Major General Antonio Taguba, who insisted on an honest investigation into Abu Ghraib, even though his military and political superiors didn't want one, and Ellen Forster, who in 2008, while in charge of fraud investigations at Countrywide Financial Corporation, the nation's largest subprime mortgage lender, at the epicenter of the mortgage meltdown that almost brought the entire economy to its knees, told her superiors that many executives in Countrywide's chain of command were working to cover up the massive fraud. A few months later, Countrywide's new owner, Bank of America, fired her for, quote, unprofessional conduct, unquote. Foster then began a 3-year fight to clear her name and prove she and other employees had been punished for doing the right thing. Let me add this honor roll people who put themselves in harm's way for the good of all: first responders, volunteers in natural disasters, firefighters, members of the armed forces, and the federal and state prosecutors who are trying to hold Trump and his enablers accountable to the law in the face of Trump's intimidation and harassment, often accompanied by threats by Trump loyalists to them and their families. We should honor those who do among most difficult of jobs of all: teachers in poor communities, social workers, nurses, elder care, and hospice workers. These are the true heroes of America. They keep the nation going. They maintain the common good, but they're often overlooked, sometimes even insulted. Most earn very little. We can honor not just with respect and appreciation, but also by making sure they earn enough money to live. We can also honor them by raising public awareness of the importance of the work that they do. We have Academy Awards for actors, directors, screenwriters, Nobel Prizes in math and science, culinary awards for chefs, Olympic awards for athletes, Kennedy Center honors for the performing arts. Why not awards for upholding and strengthening the common good? A Common Good Award for an outstanding whistleblower, a Common Good Award for an exemplary civil servant, a Common Good Award for the teacher or social worker whose quiet and modest work over the course of her career has dramatically improved other people's lives, a Common Good Award for the nonprofit leader who has taken a courageous stand speaking truth to power. Why shouldn't universities confer honorary degrees on these unsuing heroes of American life? Why doesn't the United States, as does Britain, issue honors to 1,000 citizens each year who have made significant contributions to the common good? Such honors would continuously remind us of what it means to work for the common good, offer examples of civic behavior we want to encourage, and raise public consciousness of what we owe each other as members of the same society. Such public honoring could be a corrective to what we now know: blindly and automatically bestow honors on rich philanthropists because they're rich, and celebrities because they're celebrated. Wielding appropriate shame can also be a powerful motivator for the common good. It can illuminate the gap between the ideals we profess and the reality we tolerate, mobilizing us into action. Martin Luther King Jr. shamed the nation by making it impossible for white Americans outside the South to condemn segregation, while simultaneously tolerating discrimination all around them. As King told a crowd of 25,000 in Detroit in June of '63, quote, "We've got to come to see that the problem of racial injustice is a national problem. No community in this country can boast of clean hands in the area of brotherhood. Now, in the North, it's different in that it doesn't have the legal sanction that it has in the South. But de facto segregation in the North is just as injurious as the actual segregation in the South. And so, if you want to help us in Alabama and Mississippi and over the South, do all that you can to get rid of the problem here," unquote. By extending the shame of Southern segregation to the nation as a whole, King raised the bar. We are all implicated in racial discrimination. It was our shame as well as the South's. It continues to be. A more recent example of shaming for violating the common good occurred in August of 2017 after Donald Trump equated neo-Nazis who marched in Charlottesville, Virginia with counter demonstrators. In response, Kenneth Frazier, of the CEO of Merck Pharmaceuticals, resigned from Trump's Business Advisory Council. Frazier said, quote, "America's leaders must honor our fundamental values by clearly rejecting expressions of hatred, bigotry, and group supremacy, which run counter to the American ideal that all people are created equal. As CEO of Merck, and as a matter of personal conscience, I feel a responsibility to take a stand against intolerance and extremism," unquote. Frazier's words and actions fortified other CEOs to resign from Trump's advisory boards. Although Trump himself has shown no capacity for shame, their action had large symbolic importance. They signified that the corporation leaders of America were not going to abide white supremacists. They were going to take a stand for the ideal of racial equality. Shame may have evolved as a way to maintain social trust necessary to help us survive. Charles Darwin, in his book The Expression of the Emotions in Man and Animals, noted that humans around the world express shame in similar ways: blushing, becoming hot, casting their eyes downward, and lowering their heads. Members of Congress occasionally call as witnesses CEOs who have harmed the common good, but these shaming rituals rarely have any practical consequences. After BP's carelessness on the North Slope damaged the environment, Representative Joe Barton, a Texan Republican and chairman of the Committee on Energy and Commerce, excoriated BP executives. Barton said he was, quote, "concerned about BP's corporate culture of seeming indifference to safety and environmental issues. And this comes from a company that prides itself in their ads on protecting the environment. Shame, shame, shame," unquote. But no legislation was passed to force BP or any other oil company to be more careful. 4 years later, BP spilled 210 million gallons of oil into the Gulf of Mexico from its Deepwater Horizon drilling rig, the worst oil spill in history. Congressional shaming must be followed by legislation and criminal prosecutions that confirm the standard of behavior we expect. Prosecutions should be directed against individual wrongdoers rather than the companies as a whole. Corporations cannot feel shame, only the individuals can. Yet these days, few executives of major corporations and Wall Street banks are ever held personally accountable for illegal acts. As I've noted, no executive of any major bank was prosecuted for the 2008 financial crisis. Obama's Justice Department stopped bringing cases against corporate executives because winning cases against individual executives has become too difficult and expensive for government prosecutors. Corporations have become adept at giving their top guns plausible deniability of knowledge in any nefarious scheme. Goldman Sachs executives used the abbreviation LDL, quote, "let's discuss live," unquote, to hide their traces. And prosecutors are routinely outgunned and outmaneuvered by platoons of high-priced corporate attorneys. But individual executives must be held accountable. America has become confused about the difference between private morality and public morality. Private morality concerns what people do in private, often involving sex between unmarried people or gay people, adultery, contraception, abortion, gay marriage, even which bathroom a transgender person must use. Public morality involves what people do when they hold positions of power and public trust. A society that honors and elevates the common good would not penalize average people for what they do in private, but would be vigilant against leaders who abuse and undermine public trust. Ideally, notions of right and wrong are sufficiently embedded in people's moral consciousness from an early age that they don't need to be honored or shamed into good behavior. But the erosion of the common good over the last decades suggests that such normal consciousness has waned. Society must buttress it, and in so doing, remind others of acceptable limits. If we're serious about reestablishing the moral foundation of our life together, we must reconnect honor and shame to the good we hold in common. So, it's a long read, but it's a very, very good outline of how we think in this country. And I didn't really think about it until he pointed it out in that article that we do have sort of a skewed perception of what we consider honorable and dishonorable. Okay, now some countries in the world have a much more definite, it's more black and white to them what's honorable and dishonor. In this country, it isn't so black and white, because it just seems like, it's only dishonorable if the person is somebody of no stature. Okay, it's only, what I'm saying, the issue of honor and dishonor becomes more black and white depending on who you are in society. Okay, the more notoriety you have, the more celebrity you have, that will decide how the public is going to treat you in the end, and even how long they're going to consider you, dishonorable. Okay, now let me just take as an example, Kevin Spacey. Okay, the actor. Now he was found not guilty of the accusations of him, molesting people and stuff like that. Okay, and this I think this was settled in a court somewhere. I can't remember where the hell it was, but it got very little press coverage. Okay, that he was exonerated. The fact that the accusations were being thrown at him was big story. Okay, everybody was covering that. I don't think they had much coverage of the actual trial itself. But when the verdict got handed down, I don't think many people even were aware that, he was acquitted. And I don't think there was much said from the people who were accusing him of something, and from the people who were basically cutting the ladder out from under him, because when he was accused, and he lost his job on a TV show, and I can't remember the name of it because I wasn't watching it, but he was one of the stars on the show, and he lost that job because they didn't want him on there while this was going on, I guess. So they essentially killed his character off, and he lost that job. And then, of course, his reputation, because of the constant friggin' barrage of hate and stuff that was being put out there by the press, and the coverage of the people accusing him, making it seem like it was so certain that, he is guilty. People online were already condemning him for what he was doing when it hadn't even been proven yet, okay, whether or not this stuff was actually happening. So, when the trial was all over, and when he walked away acquitted, there was really hardly any rumble at all in the press about it. Okay, I think I saw this story on the BBC. Believe it or not, is where I saw it. I didn't see this pop up on CNN's website or NBC or any of the other American ones. It came up across on BBC, and it wasn't a very big article. It was very short. And that was like, when I was reading this article here that Robert Reich had written, I was thinking a little bit about that and thinking, the honorable thing for the nation to have done would have been to apologize for the shit that they did that kind of beset him in his career. I mean, basically his career is pretty well ruined. I don't think anyone's ever going to hire him to do anything, no matter what. If he was found innocent or guilty, I think, that's that. I mean, and of course I reflect, on other high-profile cases that happened. And most of the time, people condemn the person before things are actually proven. And we do this all the time. I mean, even in the OJ case, I mean, yeah, he was found not guilty. Okay, I'm just going to take that because it's an example. I mean, I personally think that, he is guilty, but aside from that, the fact is he was found not guilty. Did anybody come up to him, any of his former friends, or anybody shake his hand or apologize to him? No. The doors of opportunity were closed to him that very night when he was acquitted. Okay, he couldn't get nothing anywhere. All right, and all his friends pretty much, shunned him. So he was basically, a person with no home, and over time he lost everything. Okay, so he just nobody was willing to forgive, or ask forgiveness from him for having, been on the bandwagon to condemn him. Okay. And of course, when the civil case came up later and he was found guilty in that, that sort of justified these people's reaction to him for, shunning him the way they did. Okay. But, like I said, again, that's a separate issue there. I'm just talking about the fact that he was found innocent, and nobody went to apologize. Hollywood didn't apologize. Nobody apologized to him. They didn't care, about, what the jury thought. They already condemned him in the court of public opinion. And when you're guilty there, you're guilty no matter what. The court doesn't mean shit to people these days. And that, I think, is, when people have no respect for the court system, their idea of honor and dishonor become, skewed, because we expect honorable decisions to be given from the court, and oftentimes we don't get it. We get confusing verdicts. We get verdicts that we think are not right, okay? And suddenly what we're told we're supposed to honor doesn't seem worth honoring anymore. And I think over time, when we start to see these things happen in our society, and we don't see people falling on their sword, as it were, for doing the wrong thing, and we don't see leaders stepping forward and saying, I'm sorry, I did what I did, it was wrong, and I'm either going to offer my resignation or submit myself to arrest. We don't see that. Nobody sees that. And if anybody does that, they think there's something wrong with the guy or the girl, whoever. They think you're screwy. Okay? So nobody even trusts that if you try to be honorable in what you do. Nobody trusts that. They don't believe that. They don't believe in a person doing the right thing. And that's because we're surrounded by people, or surrounded by news of people, because of the press, of Americans always doing the wrong thing. Bad news, bad news, bad news. Eventually we start to think that the whole country is fucked, that this whole country is no good. And when you start thinking like that, honor and dishonor doesn't really mean a whole lot anymore, does it? And I think the only time we ever put any label of honor and dishonor on something that, we kind of all have an agreement to, is someone who's in the military. Even if a person serves in the military and doesn't go to war, if he comes out, he's considered honorable. Okay, honorable, because he gets a certificate, an honorable discharge. And so I got a piece of paper that says I'm honorable. Okay, doesn't matter if 5 years later he commits a murder or a double homicide. Okay, no, he got an honorable discharge, and the government won't take that away. Okay, they won't take that away. So like I said, the only time that word ever is used is in our military. But in other societies, it's also used in business. It's also used in culture. And it's practiced, and it's taught to their kids. That if you do this, we will dishonor you. And it's a label that you won't be able to remove for a long time unless you do lots of good things. Okay? But we're always going to remember that. And the thing is that in America, we're only mad at a person to a point, and even if that person is bad or doing, and he does like a few good things, people say, oh, he's a good person, he did lots of honorable things, even though he did a lot of bad things too. It's like, how do they say, we cherish the villain who gets away with the crime. That's why we have such an obsession with shows like The Sopranos or movies like The Godfather. Dishonorable people getting away with crimes, horrible crimes. And we seem to have a lot more respect and honor given to people like that in this country. And that's certainly one reason why we voted for Donald Trump, a man whose dishonor abounds. All the way, years before any of us were even born, probably. He's a very dishonorable person. And yet, we have a segment of our population that loves this guy, that doesn't give a shit that he's a dishonorable man. They don't give a shit how many people he screwed over, or how many laws he broke, or how much national security he damaged. Okay, they don't care about that. All they care about is the fact that he represents something that they want to stand behind because it gets them something in the end. Okay, they think it's going to get them, advance them to some point. So if it does good for them, he's an honorable man. Okay, I don't know how else to define it, but that's kind of how I'm getting that anyway. All right, so that's it for today, and I hope everybody has a great rest of the week. So please subscribe and comment, and keep your ears open for COVID-19. There's still talk about it out there, people getting it, and you know, treat each other politely, honorably, do the right thing, do kind things. Even the smallest kind thing is always going to be thanked and liked, and it might even make people, you know, go, you did something nice, you know. And, you know, it kind of humbles people, too, when you do nice things. So, you know, try that once in a while, and people will remember that. And they'll probably feel inspired to do something good themselves. So that's how you pass it around. So take care, everybody. Talk to you again later. So, bye.